From the passionate emotions of the Romantic age to the structured critiques of the Victorian era and the experimental chaos of modernism, literary criticism opens the door to understanding not just the literature but in life itself. In today's session, we will dive into the key critics, their ideas, critics, and how they shape the literary world as we know it. So stay tuned, everybody, because I'll also ask you some thought provoking questions to challenge your understanding about the literary criticism. So stay tuned, do watch the video. This is going to be the fifth class of literary criticism from the very basic, the definition, the meaning of literary criticism until the ages, that in how many ages literary criticism was majorly popular, and the critics also that they have shared their opinion, their views about the different writers and the work around the globe. So do not miss any part of the video. Focus on the content, focus on the pointers, highlight, because you are the student of English literature and you are preparing for the assistant professor. You are about to do a research, PhD. So focus on the detailed content. Okay. So before starting the class, subscribe the channel for the PDFs, notes, questions, queries, MCQs, solutions, any other updates. You can join the Telegram channel, everybody. And also the one thing that you must do, everyone, to share and make all the videos to reach in all the students who are preparing for their learning, for their dream job and their assistant professor journey. So with this aim, let's start the video. And also to get a step ahead of the channel, you can become a member of this channel to get an extra support, extra guidance by me. With this, let's start the class. You all must have an idea about the Romantic age, that what were the themes, what were the techniques, highlights of all the writers of the Romantic age were following during the this particular age. Okay, so we already know in the poetry class now all the ages are in very much detail, in depth. You can get the knowledge by watching those videos. I will share you the link in the bio and descriptions. Playlist is also already there. So Romantic age, you all know there were few specific writers who have shared their opinion about the works. So I have a question before starting, because if you have watched the video of poetry class, you will definitely answer, because we are now focusing only in the literary part, not the criticism part, but everything has been discussed already in the previous class. So now tell me, which romantic poet believed that the poetry should be a spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling? Quickly comment your answer if any of you are watching. Then, do you think morality and social purpose should dominate literature, or should art exist for art's sake? And who is the critic, who is the writer who gave the arts for art's sake, or who is the writer who popularized the term arts for art's sake? You can keep commenting your answer by hearing the questions. And also, which Victorian critic do you think had a bigger influence on Shakespearean studies? I'll give you a hint: Matthew Arnold or John Ruskin. Another, do you find experimental writing confusing or intellectually stimulating? Quickly comment your answer, everybody. And who was the writer who gave the term negative capability? Who was the critic writer, the most important influential critic, who was also an essayist and known as Anglo-American writer? Comment his name and tell me a concept term given by him. In the question, I have given you the hint. So let's start. In the Romantic age, you know how Romantic age started after the Neoclassical. So the Romantic age in literature began around 1798. We all know, with the publication of lyrical ballads by Wordsworth and Coleridge. It was lasted until 1830s. It was a reaction against neoclassicism and Enlightenment rationality. Okay, I want to give you the much detail because we have already been through all very much detail in the poetry class. So we have to know that romantic age critics, remember majorly we are focusing on the criticism part, the critics only. So by going or bringing any other writer or concept, it will be confusion. It will be confusing. Okay. So we are focusing on the majorly critics and criticism. In Romantic Age, it was started around the 1798 with the lyrical ballad and the manifesto of the lyrical ballad in 1800, and the another one 1802. So with this, it is said that it was the manifesto of a Romantic Age. So here, what Romantic critics believed and followed. In compared to the neoclassical age, you have to remember all the ages have been compared to the previous one, and it was the response to the what the previous critics, previous writers have done in the respective ages, respective previous ages. So similarly, in the Romantic age, we will find the reason that why Romantic critics believed and followed. So first one was imagination over reason. You know, in neoclassical age, the writers, the critics were following the reason. So it was discarded in the Romantic age and taken by imagination. They valued, the Romantic age critic valued imagination, intuition, and creativity more than strict rules and rationality. So here you can say that art has become the expression of the inner world of the poet. How the poet in this age expressing their views, focusing on the imagination, emotions, and individuality. Then the second thing, emotions and individualism. Poetry was seen as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings said by Wordsworth. So in this age, the critics must respect individuality of the expressions rather than impose classical rules. The previous one ages what the writers, classical writers, their style, what they have used, instead of focusing and imposing all the classical rules, regulations, you have to follow the individual's expression. You have to bring your own expression. You have to respect the individual's choice, individual's expressions, what they want, what they thought, their thought or perception. Then the third thing, the Romantic age was focusing nature as inspiration. All the writers of the Romantic age were majorly inspired by nature. So nature was considered a living spiritual force, not just a background. Here, literature should capture the harmony between man and nature. According to Romantic age, nature bring peace, peace of mind. So that is why poets are able to express their views more freely by using their own language. And that is why they are also able to reach the language to the common people. Then organic unity, works of art were seen as living organisms, not mechanical structures. It was said by Coleridge. Organic unity is a term given by S.T. Coleridge. Then another, freedom from rules. Unlike neoclassical age, Romantic age writers were freely using their freedom of expression, the freedom of choice. They were not bound by any rules or regulations, any rigid rules, strict rules. Instead, they were writing their work more freely and with the nature. So, romantic critics believed genius cannot be confined by rules. You know, it is also said that a genius mind you should live freely. Then only you can see what they have got. You cannot restrict a genius mind. So another one, criticism as appreciation. Romantic criticism was more creative and sympathetic rather than judgmental. They were not judgmental in the sense through their work. Instead, they were respecting the individual's choice, okay, of in the society. Another one, a critic should help readers understand and feel literature, not just measure it by any rules. A reader should not only read and understand that there is the use of rhyme, there is the use of meter, pentameter, iambic pentameter, rules, regulations, what are the things that a reader should adopt. Instead, whatever the readers are here reading, they should understand that what actually the mean is, what actually the literature is. So they should feel. So they should feel. Okay. Now, major romantic critics you must not forget: William Wordsworth, preface to the lyrical ballad 1800 to 1802, and the 1798 it was the lyrical ballad only. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Biographia Literaria. Remember, we are not discussing the all the work, but only the work that has been criticized, that has been used by these writers to give the any terms concept about when they use the any literary, when they have criticized any work in their important all these works. Remember, we are not using all the works by all these writers, critics, because we are focusing only the criticism part. So the work, the criticism in the work they have given, we are only focusing on them. In these works, we will find the term, concept, and theories, or the writers or discussions. Okay. Then another one we have here, William Hazlitt, Lectures on the English Poets 1818, Charles Lamb, Essay of Elia and Specimens of English Dramatic Poets, P.B. Shelley, A Defense of Poetry, and John Keats, Letters, Concepts of Negative Capability and Poetical Character. So these are the important major romantic critics. If any of critics I have missed and not included in the PDF, you can comment the name in the comment section. You can tell me the name in the comment section. I will add in this PDF. Then only I will share on Telegram channel. Okay. Use your power immediately. If you are aware now, you can immediately let me know. Because you know now, while preparing a lot of content all together, while being busy bee all the time, so it is little bit get difficult or a slip of mind. So it happens. Okay, I hope you do understand. So let's discuss first critic, the major critic of Indian romantic age. We have William Wordsworth. We all know, who was a central figure of the first generation of English romantic poets and the co-founder of the movement. Wordsworth's poetry is known for its intense focus on the nature and the individual's spiritual relationship with the natural world, and its use of simple, accessible language to the common people, who also explore profound emotional and philosophical ideas focused on the ordinary life of individual people's choice and nature. All these things now became the source of poetic inspiration for the Wordsworth. Okay. Major critical work, preface to the lyrical ballad. And in this work, what he has discussed, he laid down the principles of romantic poetry. He defined poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion that is recollected in tranquility. Advocated simple language and poetry based on common life and emotion. He also advocated simple language and poetry based on common life and emotion, emphasized the importance of rustic and humble subjects in poetry, believing that their lives to be closer to nature and thus more authentic. You know, by using the common language, ordinary people's language, and their freedom of choice, freedom of expression, he wanted to get closer to the ordinary people and also make them feel the literature more authentic and more genuine. Instead of, the reader should not only feel that they are reading on an imagination, imaginative work, or the something is related or based on fantasy or imagination. Instead, they should relate. So this is what the opinion of William Wordsworth. Now, next critic we have Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Everybody, Samuel Taylor Coleridge was a poet, philosopher, and literary critic and collaborator with the Wordsworth in the lyrical ballad. And how many poems or work they collectively published, I have told you in the previous class. He was regarded as one of the most influential English critics. Why? Because his Biographia Literaria was a major work of literary criticism that explores the nature of poetry and the power of imagination. And he also distinguishes between the fancy and imagination by giving the concept and definition that what fancy exists and what is the imagination. So ST College also argued for the organic unity of art where form and content should integrate naturally, growing from the artist's internal vision. These are the highlights about the critics. Remember the birth date also, everybody, to solve the matchology questions. Then major work, we all know what he has given us, Biographia Literaria 1817, and in this the concept, the thing that they have, that he has given, he introduced the theory of imagination. He developed the idea of organic unity in poetry. He distinguishes between fancy means mechanical and associative, while imagination, that is creative and unifying. Fancy, he told, it is the mechanical process, and imaginative, he's told that it is a creative and unifying process. His criticism combines philosophical insight and literary analysis. He also explains the supernatural and symbolic elements in poetry. If any of these words appear in the exam that has been highlighted here, you must get towards the ST college. Okay. He popularized the term willing suspensions of disbelief to explain how readers accept fictional words. Willing suspension of disbelief. You don't know, while watching the Rajnikant movie or any other action movie, which is totally based on fantasy or imagination, we somehow try to stop criticize or stop thinking in a more critical manner and said that it is the part of the story. There are two types of people who said that no, there is nothing like that. This type of thing does not exist in reality. They are just showing, it's a VFX. And there are some people who said, feel that this is the part of narrative and this is the demand of a story. So that is why the director, the narrator is trying to show. So that is why here when we choose to temporarily put aside our critical thinking and accept that something unrealistic or impossible is true happening within the story's world. So here we are using the willing suspension of disbelief. Okay. He also challenged Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction and argued that the language of rural people wasn't inherently superior. He also provided a more philosophical and psychological approach to literary criticism. So there are more concepts and theories given by S.T. Coleridge. You must not forget. Okay. Another one we have William Hazlitt. William Hazlitt was a prolific and inclusive English essayist, journalist, and literary critic, known for his passionate prose, political radicalism, and famously cantankerous personality. This word, Hazlitt championed the work of his contemporaries even while maintaining his independent and often critical stance. And the major critical work given by William Hazlitt, you must not forget, Characters of Shakespeare, 1817, The Spirit of the Age, 1825, and the essay of collection Table Talk, 1821 to 22, and the lectures on the English poet, 1818. Okay. Then what are the concepts? While criticizing the work, what he has given us, he introduced the psychological and moral evaluation in literary criticism. Who introduced the psychological and moral evaluation? William Hazlitt. Okay. Then he advocated personal response over rigid rules. Who is the writer who advocated personal response over rigid rules in response to the neoclassical age? So it was Hazlitt. He also analysis of characters' motivations, passions, and moral dilemmas. He his criticism accessible to the common reader. He admired the objectivity of Renaissance writers like we have Shakespeare and criticized the egotism he saw in some of his romantic contemporaries. So he somehow he's praising the Renaissance age writers, Shakespeare, and also one of many of his contemporary writers because of their egoistic nature. He is also criticizing. So in on gusto, he defined gusto as the passion. Gusto means, remember, passion and energy in a work of art. So what does it gusto mean here? Means passion and energy in a work of art given by William Hazlitt. He argued that great art expresses the full power and dynamism of its subject, provided astute critical analysis of Shakespeare and his contemporaries. Okay, so these are the things: psychological and moral evolution, personal response, rigid rules, character motivations, passion, moral dilemmas, passion and energy that simply belongs to the gusto. And whom of which of the Renaissance writer he praised? Shakespeare. Remember all the highlighted points here. Now let's go on to the next. Also, he was known for his passionate, vigorous, and the subjective critical essays. Passionate, vigorous, and subjective critical essays. Now, another critic we have, everybody, just focused on the while preparing for the literary criticism. Preparing for the literary criticism, what should be your major focus on? You have to follow the term that they have given. Remember the first thing, work. In which work the term has appeared. So term, concept, and if they have praised or criticized the writers of which ages. Okay, and also the quotation part is also important. While quotations. These things, while studying about the literary criticism, while preparing your notes, while solving the questions, these things you must remember. The first thing, first should be the work with publication year. See how am I writing? Publication year. These are the things. See, it's not difficult. Literary criticism, no, it's not difficult. Okay, so ace yourself, be in peace and calm, and prepare according to your own understanding on the basis of your own ability. Do not run here and there, everybody. It's not difficult to understand. What do you have to find out? You have to just find out that which critic has criticized and in which work and whose writer. What are the quotations that they have given about the specific work or the specific writer? In which way they have criticized? What are the terms that they have used? If you will think like this now, that no, literary criticism is also like halwa. Obviously, for beginners, it's difficult to understand because one writer has given so many terms, concept, theories, and discussed not only one writer or not only focuses on the one writer, but many of the writers they have criticized. And in one work, they have given a lot of terms. For example, in Aristotle's Poetics, we have to remember a lot of like hamartia, we have catharsis, we have so what is the meaning, in which sense we have all have to use them. So these are the things. Peripetia, we have anagnosia. So all these things first, you must know the meaning. What does it stand for? Then in which sense we use this? Then what are the characters that they reflect all these terms? So sometimes it gets little bit tricky. But when you start from the very basic now, the beginning, that's why I keep telling you and keep suggesting you, everybody, that whatever you are going to study, no matter at which stage on your life or in your learning journey you are, but always start with the beginning. If you are already aware about everything, at least take a glance, have a glance at what you have learned previously, and then after that you can move on to the next one. Okay, lecture is now, yes, literature means also lecture. In school, what we all keep telling to our teachers, that this teacher give a lot of lecture. They say, na, jokes apart. So we are discussing about the, sorry, yes, P.V. Shelley. P.V. Shelley was the poet of the second generation of the Romantic age. Remember, his essay on a defense of poetry 1821 is a significant piece of romantic critical theory that in this work he defends the moral and social importance of a poets. What are the things? Moral and social importance of poets. He was known for his rebellious nature, remember the revolt of Islam, political idealism, and lyrical verse. He has also been expelled from the university. Why? Because of the pamphlet he refused. So remember all the things about a particular writer. He was a close friend to Lord Byron and is buried alongside Keats in Rome. In a defense of poetry, what are the things that he has given? So, he defended poetry in response to an essay claiming it was irrelevant to the modern age, argued that poets are the unacknowledged legislature of the world. Who said this? Is the writer? Who is the critic that this line has been given by? The unacknowledged legislators of the world. It is by P.B. Shelley in the work A Defense of Poetry. So, what does it mean? This line emphasizing poetry's power to promote moral growth and inspire social change. He also believed poetry defined and elevated humanity's emotional and intellectual capacity. He also advocated for an idealistic and visionary role for poetry, seeing it as a transformative force for a better society. So his major concern was that how you can make a better society. Okay, there must be an improvement through the work, like the people keep telling and blaming that there should not be any influencer do anything wrong, anything that people should get affected by, influenced by them. If you're influencer, your role should be to do only good deed and to inspire the people by doing a lot of good deeds instead of spreading any immorality, because it affects people. So now we have John Keats, a major English poet, also second romantic generation, whose literary career was tragically cut short. Why? Because he was died at the age of 25. It is a PYQ at which age John Keats was died. So who was the writer who died at such a young age? 25, because of tuberculosis. Initially, before giving his hand to a literature, he was working in a hospital, pharmacist. As a pharmacist he was. So when his brother got affected by tuberculosis, he was, while taking care of his brother, he somehow got affected and he was also died. Keats is celebrated for his the sensual poet who is known as a John Keats, imagery and the lyrical beauty, and who is the writer who wrote so many odes. It is John Keats, okay? And profound philosophical insights expressed largely through his letters and odes. So, what he said, his ideas are expressed primarily in his letters rather than a single major essay. Okay, he developed the concept of negative capability, in which he said that there should be the ability to embrace uncertainty, mystery, and the doubt without becoming irritable, reaching after the fact and the reason. He championed the value of aesthetic experience, famously writing, "Beauty is truth and the truth is beauty." He also emphasized the importance of imagination and a creative process, like S.T. Coleridge. Now, another important critic we have of the Romantic Age, it was Charles Lamb. Charles Lamb, the very popular work you must remember, and the pseudonym name. He was an English essayist and a poet and friend to many major romantic figures. Lamb is considered one of the most beloved figures in English literature. He is known as the father of essay. Despite personal tragedy, including his sister Mary's mental illness, he was a master of the informal personal essay, often writing under the pseudonym Elia. That is why you will find the major work Essays of Elia and the Last Essays of Elia, 1823 and 1833, just after 10 years. Then significant of all the work that you will find the terms concept that he has given while criticizing. He said he combined literary criticism with personal reflections and humor. He focused on literary charm, moral insight rather than rigid analysis. Criticism, according to him, is should be subjective, personal, and conversational. He appreciates aesthetic delight and subtlety in literature. Lamb's criticism is often found in his formal, whimsical, and deeply personal prose. His major focused on the appreciation of literature, particularly on the Elizabethan and Restoration dramatists. He was writing with humor and pathos. So his essay are poetic, blending autobiography with humor and tender reflection. Okay, so do remember about Charles Lamb. Pseudonym, remember essay of Adia, and the essay of Adia 1823 and the last essay of Adia 1833, who was a master of the informal personal essays and also known as the, yes, essay of Adia, and Charles Lamb known as the Prince of English essay. Prince of English essay. Then another important critics of the Romantic age, Sir Walter Scott, who was an Scottish poet, a novelist, and also known as the father of the historical novel, who helped define the genre. His critical work reflected his deep interest in history and folklore. So, in the last years of his life, Scott meticulously annotated the magnum opus related to Sir Walter Scott. It was the edition of his Waverley novels, 1829 to 1833. Major critical works that he has given us: letters on literature, essays in periodicals, not majorly. Okay, so there are something different from all the previous critics. You do concentrate, everybody. The significance about his criticism was he developed a historical and descriptive literary criticism, historical and descriptive. He advocated the study of literature in cultural and historical context, emphasis on romantic history, medievalism, and national culture. He showed how historical understanding enriches literary appreciation, and also in works like Lives of the Novelist 1821, Scott wrote biographical and critical essays on earlier English writers. Okay. Then Scott's editorial projects, not specifically the work that like um, like William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, P.B. Shelley, but he will he his criticism you will find in something different. So Scott's editorial projects. Scott was a prolific and highly respected editor, undertaking major projects that included critical introductions and annotations. And in this editorial part, he has used his criticism opinion. He has given his opinion. The works of John Dryden 1808, this massive 18-volume edition included a biography and extensive critical apparatus that solidified Scott's reputation as a scholar. Then another work, the works of Jonathan Swift 1814, it is a 19-volume edition to which Scott also contributed significant critical commentary, which was particularly in the form of his biography of Swift. Okay, so this is how you have to remember. Then another thing, his review in the quarterly, his contributions in the quarterly review as a founding contributor to the Tory journal Quarterly Review. Scott wrote numerous articles that reflected his conservative but pragmatic critical views. And in this quarterly review, his context was to provide a balance to the rival big journal Edinburgh Review, for the which he had previously written. Notable example you can simply understand in while reviewing. He reviewed the Jane Austen's Emma, the very popular work by Jane Austen, who was also a part of Romantic age. Jane Austen, Scott's highly favorable second generation review is one of the most famous pieces of contemporary criticism on Austen's work. So it notably elevated the novel's literary merit and praised its realistic depiction of domestic life. Jane Austen is very popular because of his domestic reflection in the work of the society, contrasting with his own large-scale historical work. So quarterly review contributions of Sir Walter Scott and his editorial projects. This is how you have to remember his criticism part that made him popular and stand him as a popular critic. Okay. Another another critic we have another critic John Wilson, and the pseudonym name is Christopher North. Minor, but I thought to include. He was an Scottish essayist, critic, and academic who was a prominent figure in the Edinburgh literary scene. He was using the pseudonym as a Christopher North, who John Wilson. He was a fierce critic of Blackwood magazine. Major work Blackwood's magazine contributions and the Knox Ambrosian series. And what did he say? How he has criticized? He wrote a gladiatorial and an often acerbic style, building significant influence over literary reputations through his powerful reviews. So there are more writers, more critics who has been popularized as who have established themselves as a critic by giving the review, by reviewing the work, not only criticizing but giving the review. His critical views were often aligned with Tory politics, remember who? John Wilson, and were known for their spirited, if sometimes aggressive, and exuberance. Then another writer, Thomas De Quincey, an English essayist, a literary critic, and a member of the Lake Poets Circle. Though his reputation was marred by lifelong opium addiction, De Quincey's work are known for their ornate prose, psychological depth, and autobiographical elements. He was best known for his autobiographical work, Confessions of English Opium Eater, 1821. Who was another opium addicted writer? Comment your answer, everybody. Very popular critic and poet. He's from the Romantic Age. Opium eater, you can say, or opium addict. So it was in work. Major critical work, Confessions of an English Opium Eater, 1821, which includes essays like On the Knocking at the Gate in Macbeth. So in this essay, you will find significance of these works that he has given. He has criticized by giving his opinion. He proposed a famous distinction between the literature of knowledge, which instructs, and the literature of power, which moves and motivates. His work often explores psychological themes and personal experience, blending autobiography with critical insight. He was known for his ornate, intricate, and the often digressive prose style. He was compared the human brain to the palimpsest. Remember, this is important term. Is a PYQ. This thing already appeared. Palimpsest, suggesting that no experience is ever truly forgotten. So I hope you got the point. It's very easy in the easy language I have used. I am also using following the Romantic Age writers and using the ordinary English language, not any high level language I'm using to make you all understand. And if there is any word which you are not able to understand, now you can comment. I will find out the meaning and let you know. Okay. In the comment section, I will reply, and I reply to everybody. Okay. So be there and comment. Then now, before discussing the Victorian age criticism or the critics, tell me what were the major terms or the major words that has been used in this era. I have discussed in the poetry class that I have also told you that with the ages you must remember the key word. You can relate easily. Keyword. Relate. Always find the keyword and relate to all the ages, that in this particular age these type of keywords the writer used in their work, or themes you can say. Comment your answer. So Victorian age criticism is characterized by tension between the romantic subjectivity and a new focus on social responsibility, realism, and aestheticism. They were more emphasizing on the morality, social responsibility, and practicality. Practicality in literature. According to them, literature often reflects the social issues. The Victorian age poet, social issues of the time. And that is why they were focusing on the subject industrialization, industrialization, class, gender, and religion. So, if the critiques we are going to discuss about the Victorian age majorly, all these things we will find in their criticism. Who can be the major critics of the romantic? Can be the who could be the major critics of a Victorian age? Just by hearing my answer question, now quickly your comment should be your comment should be lined up. The key characteristics of Victorian criticism must remember contradictory tendencies, art for life's sake versus art for art's sake, emphasis on morality and social context, social issues, rise of the professional critic, and comparative method. Comparative method in the sense they were talking about the class, they are talking about the gender, they were talking about the religion. So that is why it is a comparative method here, or the social issues, social context. Social context is mentioned. Major Victorian critic you can find Matthew Arnold, John Ruskin, Walter Pater, and Oscar Wilde. There might be minor writers also. So Matthew Arnold is the major one and the most important of the Victorian age. He was the foremost Victorian critic and a poet. Arnold was a powerful public intellectual who was concerned with the decline of culture. Concerned with the decline of culture. So his focus and his aim while criticizing will be based on the how he can reform the culture, how he can increase the power of culture, he regain the culture in the society, bring the culture in the society, establish culture and morality in an industrial age. He believed that in literature and especially poetry could replace religion as a moral compass. According to Arnold, he said that especially in terms of poetry, it was his belief that in literature, especially the poetry, can replace the religion as a moral compass. Who said this? This was the thought of Matthew Arnold. Critical essays, critical works, Essay on Criticism, first series 1865, Culture and Anarchy in 1869, and The Study of Poetry 1880. The key ideas that he has given, he defined criticism as a disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world. Disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world. Okay. He advocated for the concept of high seriousness. This is the PYQ. The term high seriousness is given by Matthew Arnold in poetry, which he saw as a criticism of life. He also proposed the touchstone method. Who gave the touchstone method? It is Matthew Arnold, where passages from great classical poets are used to evaluate the quality of a contemporary poetry. He also critiqued the Romantics for lacking intellectual substance, though he admired their poetic power. Though he admired the poetic power. That means here he not only criticized the romantic age writers, poets, or critics because of they lack intellectuality or substance in their work, but he also somehow admired their poetic power, the language, the morality that they used in the work. Okay, so very important, Matthew Arnold. Then the key criticism you must not remember, key quotation, criticism is a matter of taste founded upon knowledge. Who said this? It was said by Matthew Arnold. Now another critics we have everybody, John Ruskin. John Ruskin was a primarily an art critic. Ruskin was also a prominent social thinker and a champion of art's moral dimension. His passionate prose style made him highly influential public figure, though he was often seen as eccentric by his contemporaries. So he was not a major critic, but he was an art critic. He used to criticize art. He was also a social thinker. Remember the key works that he has given: modern painters, 1843 to 1860, the Stones of Venice. To check the year, everybody cross check the year, and unto this last 1862. Let's see what are the key ideas of John Ruskin. He championed the idea of the truth to nature. Remember, who championed the idea of truth to nature or given by? It is John Ruskin, urging artists to observe and depict the natural world with honest detail. He also advocated for moral purpose in art, believing that art and morality were inseparable. Art and morality, it is not said that, it is said that art is the reflection of the artist stability, his perception. So that is why here he is saying that moral advocate, he said that he is saying that art cannot be separate with morality. In your work, whether you are drawing, you are writing, poetry, literature, drama, somehow writers' thinking or perception, what are the thought of perception of the writer, now somehow we can find the reflection in the work. Okay, so that is the moral thing. If there is a writer who keep writing on the moral subject, and there is another writer who keep writing on spreading with the sense of immorality in the society, or trying to make the people dumb or create any falsehood in the people's mind, so both have differentiation. We will find their mental stability in their work. Okay. He criticized industrialization for producing aesthetically inferior goods and dehumanizing workers. In The Stone of Venice, he argued that the quality of a culture could be seen in its art and architecture, who was favoring the Gothic style for its individualism and spirituality. So he was also in the favor of the moral purpose through the art that should be reflected in the writer's work. And the writer's quotation was, "The highest reward for a man's toil is not what he gets for it, but what he becomes by it." Now, another important key figure we have, Walter Pater. He was a writer and critic who became the leading figure of the aesthetic movement. Very, very important. In late Victorian England, his nonsense and impressionistic critical style directly challenged the moral didacticism of figures like Arnold and Ruskin. Just we have talked about the Matthew Arnold and John Ruskin, and now here he is challenging their thought perception, their criticism. Key works that he has given: Studies in the History of the Renaissance, 1873. Particularly, it was its preface and conclusion. Okay, if you are going to read, you have to read this and this part. Now, key ideas of Walter Pater. He became the prominent voice for the doctrine of art for art's sake. Remember, art for art's sake is he promoted an individualistic and impressionistic approach to criticism, where the critics' main task is to articulate their unique impressions of a work of art. Okay, and also he advocated for a life of intense experience, or a hard gem like flame, believing that the purpose of life was to experience beauty and sensation to their fullest. And the key quotation: "All art constantly aspires towards the condition of the music." All art all art constantly aspires towards the condition of the music. Okay, so this was the major key ideas by Walter Pater, who was a leading figure of the aesthetic movement, and art for art's sake is related with Walter Pater. But who popularized this term, everybody? Who popularized this term? I have told you that this art for art's sake, there are three few writers who are related. He is the mostly related, the first one. The second one, this term was popularized by Oscar Wilde. Do not forget Oscar Wilde. And the another one, it was John Osborne. No, Swinburne, I guess. Swinburne. Yes, I have told you already in one of the video. I'm forgetting. Now let's go to the next. Oscar Wilde we have now, who was a dramatist, novelist, and wit. Wilde was a disciple of Walter Pater. So he was the one who popularized art for art's sake, okay? And a leading proponent of aestheticism, his writing often satirized Victorian social modes, especially its hypocrisy. Focusing on the Victorian writers. He is not usually grouped with any mainstream Victorian critics like Arnold or Ruskin, Pater or Stephen, but he promoted art for art's sake, a phrase often linked to Walter Pater but popularized by Oscar Wilde. Wilde's critical essays, The Critics as Artist, 1891, and The Decay of Flying, 1891, placed him closer to aesthetic and modernist criticism rather than Victorian moral or social criticism. It's an important point, must remember. The key work, The Critic as Artist, 1891, and what he has discussed? He argued for the autonomy of criticism, claiming that criticism is its own independent creative art form. He expanded on Pater's ideas, suggesting that the critic creates meaning from a work of art rather than passively receiving it. Okay, and also he championed the pursuit of beauty, aesthetic pleasure, rejecting art's supposed moral function. Remember, all the students somehow rejecting the ideas of their teacher from classical age, that Aristotle, Plato, and here Walter Pater, they have been to the student of all their teachers. Why? Because they somehow influenced by them. But in after gaining the knowledge, they are rejecting the ideas of their teachers. So wow, what we can say. Many of you also will reject. How many of you are going to reject my teaching? You can, yes. It's okay when a student get ahead of teacher, teacher becomes happy instead of feeling more happy, actually happier, happiest. And I will become more happier. Happiest I will become if any of you will crack your net, you will high selected for the PhD, you will go for the research, you will have a proper job, you will fulfill your dreams, your parents' dream, your life's dream. I will be the happiest, okay? But do let me know, okay, once you get once you achieve what you want. Because I never forget my student, whether it's online or offline. I remember two type of people, one is bad and one is good. Good, bad people, though I forgot someday, but good people always remains in heart. Because eventually, when we will die, our generosity, our wisdom, our goodwill will go with us. Or you know now what the God is going to do with us? Yes, He will fry us in a hot oil. That is why I believe in do good and be good. Do hard work instead of depending on anybody else. Do hard work because it's your life. Nobody is going to give you anything. So it's your life, everybody. I will take a moral class also while telling a lot of moral lessons, teaching you a lot of good things. Okay, jokes apart, let's start the class. So now, man, let's discuss about the minor critiques of Victorian age. When we study in offline classes, the students enjoy because the teaching online it becomes boring. And while I'm having my premiere of the post, when the students do not comment because I it was a live. It was not less than live. It is the post while premiering. It is live. I'm watching that how many students have joined and how many of you are commenting who are active. So if none of you are active and commenting, it feels like I'm still shooting. I'm still recording my videos, and there are none of the students who are available to answer, who are available to respond, so who are active. So be active and do comment. Do join the class while premiering. Won't make me feel bored all the time. The class should not be bored. I will share you while doing my second live class. I will tell you how I study. Since my school time till now, my study timetable, my routine is still same. And if I don't follow that now, I feel bored. I feel like obviously because I do not have anybody to support me or talk to me, so I stay alone. I stay with myself only. So that is why I keep typing, preparing notes, content, keep studying all the time. There are very few. That is why I feel more connected with my student. Okay, so here Thomas Carlyle was also one of the minor critics. We can include him. Remember, everybody, his works for the mature educations was appear in June 2023. While solving the questions, I have found. But whatever the thing is, I have found his questions, all the minor works by this writer, no, in chronology. So do not forget to prepare this writer. So he was an Scottish writer and historian who was an influential social critic. He was a transitional figure rooted in romantic idealism, but a powerful voice of protest against the spiritual and social ills of the industrial society. The people who raised the voice, who felt somehow, or who you can say that they somehow has been troubled by the society or the society's norms and rules. That is why they got the power eventually and raised the voice. And if the one who could not raise the voice because of some certainty or restrictions, they let their views in the work. They share their views and their grudge, you can say. They show their grudge in the work. Sometimes I also feel that I should write, I will definitely write someday on the major concern of the female that is still in India we are all facing. And the second thing, the employment part, that all the government keep lying to all the students who are doing a lot of hard work day and night. Still, they got nothing at the end. They pay a lot for the paid batches. They pay a lot for their tuitions, their coaching, online, offline. Still, just because for a job. And if all this government, I want to, unki band bajana. Yes. Okay, so key works by this writer, Sartor Resartus, on heroes, hero worship, and the heroic in history. So there are very few key ideas that he has given us as a critic. He emphasized the heroic individual's role in history and culture. He believed that literature and art were expressions of a heroic spiritual impulse and condemned the materialism of his age. So there are very few key ideas about the Thomas Carlyle has given everybody. Next, so now we have discussed about the Romantic age critics and the Victorian age critics. Now let me know how do you like the class, everybody. If any of the pointers, terms, or the work or the critics minor or major, if I have missed, you have rights to let me know so that I can add them in the PDF. Then only I will share on the Telegram, because there are a lot of students who are on Telegram and they are very much active. They keep commenting the answers. They do not comment on YouTube, this platform, but they are active on the Telegram channel. So it's good. What should I say? Okay, no problem. At least you are active at one place. It's good for you. So we have discussed from the neoclassical age, the rigid roles from the romantic age, the ordinary language, the writers that they have, then the social issue, the comparison, on the Victorian age critics that they have given, the literary focus, the key critics, social responsibility, all the things we have discussed in this video. We will have only one class and then we will finish the literary criticism, and then after literary criticism, which unit we should start on, you can suggest, you can comment. I will give you a poll. Now after cultural studies, we will have you can say the quick revision series of the questions and the short videos. So do let me know how do you like the session, everybody. You want the PDF? Poetry class PDF, no? It was in great demand actually, and I can't describe how the views of poetry class is increasing day by day. Even the playlist, it reached more than 1,000. So only the poetry class you are all interested. Romantic, the literary criticism class, you will find the separate playlist, okay, because this concept is vast in itself. So I have created the separate playlist, and the unit 3 fiction and poetry you will find at one place. I did not include that. So share this to more and more student, everybody. There is only one student, I think, Suraj, you share. Do share to more and more students. Subscribe the channel and join the channel, because now I'm posting the membership content, so you can watch only by joining the channel, everybody. To get extra support, guidance, study material, notes, PDF, and immediate reply, which I always do. Thank you so much for joining the class. Do prepare your own notes, and if anything you are lacking or you're finding difficult, do let me know. I will help you. In the next class now, we will discuss the modernist and postmodernist age critics. Then we will end the class, okay? And then after we'll start the next unit. Thank you so much for joining. Do take care of yourself, everybody. Bye-bye.